Hey y'all, so I was just kind of in the mood to make a video, and tonight one of my friends on Facebook asked me to help her to participate in this little research project she has going on about sex education. And so I had to write a few, she has some questions for me to answer, and I just wrote out some answers for her, and it just got me thinking a little bit about my past and my history with sex. And yeah, so her questions were pertaining to abstinence-only education, which I did experience when I was younger. So I was raised as a Lutheran in the Lutheran Church, which is Protestant. Not that that really matters, but I also went to a religious school, and so I was religious. I don't think that it was like a huge deep part of me, but I participated and practiced religion a lot. And my mom has always been very religious, and my father has become less religious over time. And he was actually a born-again Christian, so anyway, so, I mean, in my house, we never really talked about sex. It was never something that really came up, and I think there was definitely a lot of shame around it. And I know when I was in middle school, and whenever I was watching a TV show, a sex scene would come on, I would get so uncomfortable, and I would try to get my mom to leave the room, and eventually she picked up on it, and I denied it and pretended I had no idea what she was talking about. But I think that's just so funny how shame and stigma can drive you to do things like that, and just, I guess, how much of a different person I used to be. And so my parents and I never really had a sex talk. Well, my parents are divorced, so there could be I guess two different sex talks going on there. I don't know. But my mom and I never really talked about sex. We did talk about my period and all of that stuff, and puberty and growing up, but we never talked about actually having sex and what exactly that means. I basically learned that through some books, which shouldn't be a surprise since I love books and reading. And I mean, I saw things, of course, in TV and movies, and my friends and I would whisper about it, sleepovers, so I was exposed to it, just not really through my mom. And, I remember if she would ever, say anything about sex, which, never happened, I don't know, she would just say something to the extent of why it's good to wait for marriage, and she's kind of said that she's waited for marriage, and I think she probably did, just based off of how she is and just what I know of her. So yeah, I mean, that was my experience with sex growing up. It was just not really anything, and my dad and I never talked about sex. He never, I don't think ever, has given me any kind of conversation about anything, which makes sense. It's just that, since I was living in two different houses, things, I guess, were a little different in each house. But in general, I think that neither house was really open about sex, and it was not really something that we talked about. So, in terms of formal education, I obviously, like I said, went to a religious school growing up. So, we had what I guess you could call sex education. That wasn't really sex education. It was wait until you're married education in 6th grade, and the boys and the girls were separated, and it was just kind of a nightmare. I remember everyone being just so uncomfortable, and it was so awkward, and they actually made each of us write a question down about sex or periods or puberty or whatever, because no one was asking questions, so they made us write questions, and it was just so bad. And then after that, in high school, I also had abstinence-only sex education in my health class. Now, at that point, I was thinking very critically about sexuality. I've learned a lot about sexuality. I actually know a lot about sex in terms of like the science behind it and all of the fun, geeky parts of it. And at that point, I was very educated, so I was, being very scornful towards it. And in my mind, I was just ready to die just because of all of the ignorance and fucked upness that was going on there. And the fact that sex ed lasted like probably 3 days total is very sad to me, because in my opinion, sex ed should be like a semester thing, and of course, cover all kinds of different areas of sexuality. So I just think it's really interesting how I've changed and how I've become like this really critical thinker and a really outspoken person. I would say that my channel involves me speaking out about a lot of these things and a lot of issues that relate to sex. My last video was about masturbation. So I don't know, it gives me a little bit of hope, I guess, that things could change and that even people that are being raised in these negative environments have a chance, and there is hope out there, and that maybe we can fix things, and hopefully abstinence-only education will soon be a thing of the past.